this, because without naming specific scandals, the White House has been blanketly saying phony scandals, pretend scandals, fake scandals. Do they run the risk, though, Mark, of this backfiring? Because when you have Patricia Smith, whose son died in Benghazi, step up and say, my son's death is not phony, I mean, this can tend to bring up things the administration certainly does not want to talk about.
Well, we have to be really careful, Shannon. Of course, Patricia Smith's son's death is not phony, but what the president is trying to get at here is the fact that there are real scandals in Washington. The real scandals are that in the case of Benghazi, you had Republican staffers in the House of Representatives forging documents in order to try to desperately create a scandal where none exists. That's the definition of phony scandal. And the IRS, we have Darrell Issa's committee going after, for example, the White House saying it was somehow involved, but then it suppresses all the transcripts that show that no White House, every person that came forward and testified in front of Issa's committee showed that there was no White House involvement whatsoever. So that is, in fact, a phony scandal. So what the president's trying to do is he's making a case for the economy here. All polls show that Americans care most deeply about economic growth in this country, their family's own economic security, and so what the president's trying to say is, let's have this discussion about, and let's not sweep all the good news under the table, or under the rug rather, because there is good news. The economy is growing. Job creators have created over 7 million jobs in the past 40 months. And
Stop
no, look,
the talking points.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna let Mark finish because Lars, I know he's.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank
you, Lars.
He's throwing you there a lot of red meat from forged documents by the GOP, which I never heard about, and we know there was testimony before the House by Carter Hall, who said that this IRS stuff was connected to the one of 2 political appointees from the White House at the IRS. And I'll let you, Lars, take on the economy. Because we've already talked about what the AP told us today about that, and it's not good. Lars?
You know, I got to tell you something. I may have to bow to Mark Hanna's greater knowledge because he'd know about phonies and scandals because he worked on the John Edwards campaign. But these are real scandals, and the president goes out with a generic statement that we should ignore these. John Edwards as well, and John Kerry as well, both the Johns. But the fact is that these are real scandals, and the president just blanket gives one statement. They're all phony. Is the IRS scandal phony?
Yes, it is.
No, because the chief counsel.
Every accusation that Darrell Issa has.
Let me finish.
Oh, go ahead.
Mark, you ran on with talking points. Mark, the chief counsel to the IRS met with the president in the White House 2 days before drafting a memo that told the IRS that unit that went after those Tea Party groups.
Nobody has ever found that what was discussed in that meeting.
All right, Mark, hold on. Let's let Lars.
4 Americans died.
And then we'll come back to
4 Americans died in Benghazi 10 months. 4 Americans died in Benghazi 10 months ago, and to this date, we do not know where the president was that night. We don't know who gave the stand-down order. We don't know why the State Department was allowed to strip security away from that outpost. No, it's not blame America. It's blaming the administration that was in control that decided to strip that outpost of security and then ignored their cries for help that night. And the president's whereabouts are still unknown. The president could resolve that in a heartbeat.
Shannon, this discussion is a distraction right now.
All right,
now,
Mark, I think that
it is not a distraction to ask why the free speech rights of tens of thousands of Tea Partiers in America were attacked by the IRS.
All right, let's take a little break here. Now, Mark, I think that you would admit, too, that there is legitimate concern about what happened with Benghazi and that 4 Americans died.
4 Americans did die, and when there was news that
Look
at Lars,
that's legit, but here's the problem. When the White House repeatedly says phony scandals and doesn't enumerate which ones they're talking about, it does bring up things that to millions of Americans do matter. Things like the deaths in Benghazi, the DOJ spying on my colleague James Rosen. I mean, all kinds of other things come up when you just say phony scandals. So is the White House inviting attention to things it might not want to talk about?
Right. When Benghazi happened and there was even an appearance of sort of inappropriate behavior, or there was an appearance of incompetence, we in the media had a real opportunity, and we're absolutely right to investigate that, to talk about that. When IRS happened, and the president said if there was any malfeasance, he was outraged, and we absolutely had a responsibility to tell your viewers about the possibility of impropriety. Now, as these investigations proceed and new evidence comes to light showing that there was no inappropriate behavior in the IRS scandal, for example, we also have a responsibility.
Mark, how can you say that? How can you say no inappropriate behavior when there's admissions from within the IRS that they were targeting people because of the words Patriot and Tea Party?
You can't say there was nothing wrong going on.
Be careful. Progressive
okay, but none of the progressive, none of those groups, first of all, I welcome them. An open invitation, come tell us, because we haven't heard from you. We keep hearing progressive groups, but they don't show up in public. And also, yes, there was an admission that some of them may have been on an initial screening list, but that none of them, according to the Inspector General, nonpartisan, according to him, none of them were given that level of scrutiny that the Tea Party got.
Okay, Progress Texas. Look, the only group, Lars, let me just answer the question that Shannon asked me. The only group that was barred from getting its tax-exempt status was a progressive group. Were three progressive groups, actually.
The delays were what did the damage,
Lars,
Mark, and you know it.
All right,
there were two accusations.
Solid weeks about
just let me say this. There were two accusations that Darrell Issa's committee made that these attacks were politically motivated and they only targeted conservatives. Now, both of those have been shown to be flat-out, bold-faced lies, and we in the media have an obligation to tell our viewers that what Darrell Issa and the Republican-led Congressional Oversight Committee was saying was, in fact,
and when the Inspector General came forward and said he did not get all the information and he was upset, but once he said, yes, there were progressive groups that were in an initial screening list, he said they never got the delay that the Tea Party and conservative groups got. I got to get Lars in here for a final word.
Shannon, the fact is those groups were delayed. The law says they're supposed to get an answer in 180 days. Some of them were delayed up to 27 months, and they described in detail to Congress what those delays do in an election year to the ability of political groups to engage in politics,
which is protected by the Constitution. Right? You mean social welfare organizations?
I'm telling you that when they go out to educate people about the issues,
they're not allowed to be political groups predominantly.
Thank you. We thank you both very much, and we want you to come back again soon. You play so well together.
Of course.